I can't believe I forgot Avengers Forever. Just be aware, there are spoilers ahead. So the first book that we're going to talk about is Batman 121. This ends the Abyss story arc. We find out a little bit more about what happened right after the apparent double cross in Batman 120. We find out now that it's a triple cross. Batman Inc. now is working with Abyss against the horrors and machinations of Lex Luthor. No surprise there. What's interesting is that this is yet another instance of some really rich-powered supervillain who is, or, possibly supervillain, who is doing experiments on individuals and creating a League of Monsters or something like that. So there are some elements in here which really worked out well. Overall, I mean, it's a three-part story arc. The arc was good. It was just, at the end of the day, a little boring and a little bit too formulaic. Overall, though, as I say, the writing was fine. The plot was just meh. I give this a solid B, though, because, again, writing was good, art was good. It's just overall, it was just working towards the next big Batman event. Next up, we have War for Earth 3, number 1. When I picked this up, I thought I didn't really read any of the spoilers or reviews beforehand, so when I picked this up, or when I put it on my pull list, I thought, oh, this is going to be kind of like a mini Crisis that we saw in the early 80s. But it's kind of like that, but it's more around Suicide Squad. Amanda Waller's going in trying to recruit the crime syndicate to do something. She has a plan in place. The biggest problem I had with the story is that we started in Earth 3, and I couldn't tell whether or not it was just bad, lazy writing, or if it was just the way that Earth 3 is. And I think it's the latter, because the writers on here know how to write. It's just that I understand we're not supposed to like the metahumans of Earth 3, but they're also just so dumb. It was a bit silly, and I'm trying to then wrap my head around what's going on Earth 0 or Earth 1 versus what's happening on Earth 3. So I'm going to give this one a C. Maybe if I was really into Suicide Squad, I would maybe give this a little bit higher, but I'd probably give this a C or C minus. And I think it's just, all this is subjective, but it's just not what I was really, really liking. Similarly, when we get to Suicide Squad 13, which is part 2 of this story, we're flipping back and forth between what's happening on, I guess, the main DC universe as the members of the crime syndicate come through with Amanda Waller. We're jumping back and forth in between what different groups of different members of the Suicide Squad, or should I say the anti-Amanda Waller Suicide Squad, is they're attempting to do, and how that ends up. It was very confusing as to, I had no idea where we were, like what was before, after, how things were supposed to be tied. It was a bit convoluted. I would say normally if I was really into this, I would probably step back and reread the book, maybe even a little bit more slowly. But again, I'm not a big Suicide Squad comic book reader, so I don't know if I'm going to continue on with the story, considering the next part is in Flash, and I just mentioned that I probably wasn't going to be reading Flash anymore, although that's going to be ending soon. So again, I'm actually going to give this book a little bit of a higher grade. I'm probably going to give it a solid C, or maybe even a C plus, compared to The War for Earth 3, number 1, only because I think there's just less focus on the crime syndicate of Earth 3. So I didn't have to deal with such dumb and bad characters. The one other thing I would say is that it seems like the a major plot point, not a major plot point, but something that happens to Owlman in War for Earth 3 number 1 is not what they say is what happened in this book. I think it's a bit disjointed. They may have said, "Oh, we're going to do X, Y, or Z." Suicide Squad writers started to get working on that, and then last minute on the War for Earth 3, they said, "Oh, I know what we'll do," and it is disjointed. So again, I'm probably not going to continue with this story. Amazing Spider-Man number 91. We're still in the Beyond storyline. Peter Parker and Ben Reilly now are in Staten Island trying to uncover and get through the horrible machinations that the Beyond Corporation has been working on. We see some of the villains, or I don't know what you want to call them, the results of the experiments that the Beyond Corporations worked on. Spoiler alert, in the middle of it, Ben's definitely having some issues after what Beyond has done to him psychologically in the past couple of issues. Things are missing, and we constantly see now that he has his own agenda, and once again he starts leaving people behind, and so they're going to be faced with a quite large version of a well-known spider villain, but at least Peter Parker and the members of the Heroes for Hire team are going to be dealing with. So we'll see how this is going. But it is definitely going to get to that point where Peter and Ben are really going to have to reconcile the issues here. Again, they have been really good. The editorial team and the story managers have actually been quite good at keeping the pace in the story well. Things are shifting pretty quickly, given that now it's a weekly comic book. I'm going to give this a good B+. It was actually a nice read. I like seeing Peter back. I like seeing him interacting with Ben. I think the next book I'm really looking forward to, because now we're going to get some big bad baddie battles. Here we have X-Men number 9. This had a lot of those, behind the doors, secret little orchestrations between major elements in the X-Men universe, between the Quiet Council, I guess, and then we also are seeing what's happening with Orchis on Phobos and what they're trying to do and how they're trying to pull in MODOK. It was interesting because I was just talking to someone about how the MODOK issue in issue 8 was very, it just seemed like a one-shot issue where just MODOK showed up and there was a little bit about Captain Krakoa. Here, MODOK is coming back and Orchis is trying to utilize him. So that, I thought, was really nice to actually see that it did have meaning. Issue 8 did have meaning and continuing on into the further issues. There's just a lot of political intrigue going on. There's some things that out of nowhere we're seeing more things happening on Akroa, formerly Mars, I should just say. So there's this is all, of course, leading up to more and more things. Overall, again, another solid B+ book. I thought the writing was good. If you're into X-Men political intrigue, this is a book to pick up. If you're not, you probably didn't like this book that as much. Dark Knights of Steel number 5. We're almost at the midpoint here. Here we see, as you can see from the cover, we do have Harley meeting up with the Poison Ivy. I don't even remember. She's a queen, the queen of the forest, trying to utilize the Queen of the Forest to help provide a barrier to to any enemies in the House of El. At the same time, we see Zara come home, and it's revealed that she has no idea what the murder that she's being accused of is all about. She says she never did that. And likewise, we see that we probably see I'm assuming the same creature uh, either possessing or taking the place of Clark as he confronts Bruce. And that leads to Bruce being taken in by the Kents. And so that is what we're going to see in the next issue. I really love this story. This is probably, though, one of the weaker stories. There's a little bit that went on. We did see more and more people come together, but calling this the weaker of the series is not saying anything really bad. It just, there was a little bit of action. You got a little bit more knowledge as to what's going on, but still more mysteries have arisen than answered. A minus, maybe a B plus. Artwork is phenomenal. I love the art in this book. I think the writing is great. It's just that the storyline, it was okay. It was necessary. It's going to be leading up to things. I think we're going to see that over the next couple of issues before I think we kick into high gear, probably around issue 9 or 10, when who's ever really manipulating these things, whether it is the Green Man or someone else is, or multiple people, is being confronted. Star Wars High Republic number 15, the last issue of this particular series. It will be continuing in a new series called Star Wars High Republic Jedi Order, I think it is, or Order of the Jedi. Here we see the conclusion of a couple of story elements, but not many, to be honest. A lot of things were hanging open. We do see what happens to the I'll call it a starbase. And there definitely is something going on, something that is infecting the Jedi. I was really intrigued with this book early on, and as I mentioned before, it's been a whole lot of Jedi coming to terms with certain things, emotion. I mean, it's kind of like, I hate to say it, it's kind of like watching a bunch of Vulcans, just constantly going over emotions. And how they're not worthy, or how you can't abandon me, and how can you go into this and die? There's just a whole lot of that drama over and over again, and I went through it because I thought that the writing was good, the artwork was pretty good, but this in no way, I think, solved anything or resolved anything up to a point. I think it's just, okay, they want to talk about a new storyline, so I'm very hesitant about whether or not I'm going to continue reading this in single issue form, even in trade paperback. I hope if anything, they can continue these types of series on with an accompanying novel, or maybe I might just go on to like a Star Wars wiki and find out what's going on. So overall, I'd give the series a B minus and this book a C plus. Daredevil, The Woman Without Fear, number 3 of 3. This we find out what she's going to do with Craven, and how that fight ends up. We see that her secret identity is now being known to some more people, and that there is much more of a play in what's going to happen with the Hand. They can't get Elektra, so they're going to go to someone else. Those of you who have been looking at comic releases and previews or other things may know who that person is. It was a nice little reveal, I think, at the end of the book, or towards the end of the book. But the one thing I will say in this book, and I'm warning you now, there's a spoiler and a spoiler here. This book contains an element of something that is going to appear to happen, at least, in Dark Reign. No, not Dark Reign. Devil's Reign, number 5, which is coming out next week. So there's one thing that, it shows up and it's like, oh my gosh, what? It's like, oh yeah, that'll be happening in Devil's. Go pick up Devil's Reign #5. Like saying, yeah, next week. It would have been, I think, better if this book had come out right after Devil's Reign #5, but it didn't. So I don't know if that was on purpose or it was just with the way scheduling is. I thought this miniseries was actually pretty good. I had not read much Elektra before. I thought this was pretty good, and it gives a pretty decent background of her as well, and what she's dealing with currently. So solid B plus, I think, on this, and B for the whole series. I mean, it was actually, I thought it was pretty good. And now we come to the pick of the week. As you see here, there was a mixed bag of books. Contenders for the pick of the week actually were Daredevil, One Without Fear, #3 was included in there. Actually, Amazing Spider-Man #1 for a while. I thought, okay, this might do it. But at the end of the day, it came down to Batman Killing Time #1. This is a story that I believe is supposed to take place early in Batman's career. And it involves a bank robbery that includes the Riddler, Catwoman, Croc, perhaps, and some other villains. Oh, and Penguin, of course. It's basically a well-played heist. But they capture something we don't know. They have stolen something we don't know what's inside, but it's going to have, I think, a significant meaning for Bruce Wayne. And the writing is excellent. The writing is journalistic, but it's going through at a time, minute by minute basis. Because what's interesting is, sometimes when we read a whole bunch of comics in a series, we might have 5 or 6 books that take place over the period of a night or 2 days, or maybe we're not even sure. Here we knew exactly how long things were taking. And I thought this was done very well. I think there still are some things in here that I'm still questioning as to, why were we focused on this element on this page? What does it mean? Is it going to come back? And I think it is. Artwork was great. As I say, the pacing's really good. It is jumping back and forth, but it is linear. It's only jumping back and forth between different scenes, between different characters, and then you start to see how everything comes together. Great book. I would strongly recommend picking this up. I am going to continue on with this limited series. And again, the pick of the week. And there you have it. My review for the comics coming out on March 2nd of 2022. There is at least one comic that was on my pull list that I forgot to pick up, and that was Avengers Forever #3. I will be reviewing that next week with next week's pulls. So it wasn't a miss. It was a miss, but it wasn't on purpose. Thank you for watching. If you do have any comments, or if you have any comments about the video or the comic books reviewed, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any, if you'd like to talk about some comics that I didn't review, please let me know, including comics that you might think I might like. Again, thank you for watching. Please give a like and subscribe if you do like what you're seeing, and I will see you next time. Thank you.